His pacemaker kept working for 3 more days after he stopped needing it. That's not a metaphor. It's a medical fact, pulled straight from the device itself. A small machine, still faithfully regulating a heart that had already given up, inside a house where nobody was left to hear it. 9 days would pass before anyone found him. No break-in, no one else in that house. And that's exactly what investigators couldn't make sense of at first, said something had gone wrong long before anyone arrived. Exactly how long? Nobody wanted to say out loud yet. By the time you hear what the evidence actually shows, the question won't be who did this. It'll be how nobody knew.
Santa Fe, February 26th. Jesse Kessler pulls up to the gate the way he has 1,000 times before. 16 years as Hackman's contractor. 16 years of knowing exactly how this property sounds and moves. Today, it doesn't move at all. No lights, no answer at the call box. Just a stillness that sits wrong in a way he can't name yet. He calls it in anyway. What deputies find inside doesn't look like a normal death scene, and it doesn't take long for that word to start circulating. Suspicious. Betsy Arakawa, in a bathroom, medication bottles scattered near her. Gene Hackman, in the mudroom, Kane resting beside him, sunglasses on the floor as if he'd been halfway out the door and never made it further. One of their 3 dogs didn't survive. 2 barely did. For a few hours before anyone knew anything, this looked like it could be anything. A break-in gone wrong. A domestic tragedy, something deliberate. The sheriff's department would later confirm publicly what investigators felt standing in that house that first day. This scene was strange enough that they brought in a full forensic team, thermal equipment, the works, before ruling anything out. So they went back to the beginning. Not to what killed them. To when. And that's where this story actually starts. Betsy Arakawa had not been seen or heard from in days before deputies arrived. Neither had Gene. 2 people, 1 house, and a silence long enough that by the time investigators built the full timeline, even they went quiet reading it. She died first. He didn't find her, or if he did, he never told anyone, because there was no one left to tell. What investigators would eventually piece together is a gap so long it reshapes everything else about this case. But before we get to the number, you need to understand what actually killed each of them, because neither cause of death is what most people assumed in the first 48 hours. Start with Betsy. In the days before she disappeared from the world, she'd been searching her own symptoms online. Flu, COVID, dizziness, nosebleeds, trying to name something that wouldn't sit still long enough to be diagnosed. She called a health clinic on February 12th. The appointment never happened. Whatever this was, it moved faster than the system meant to catch it. It was hantavirus, a disease most people have never had a reason to learn. It doesn't spread person to person. It spreads through dust, disturbed in a shed, a garage, anywhere rodent droppings have dried into the air over time. It starts like the flu. Days later, sometimes hours later, it isn't the flu anymore. The lungs fill. Breathing becomes something you have to fight for. Betsy Arakawa. Careful, health-conscious, exactly the kind of person who'd normally catch something early, ran out of time before anyone, including her, knew she was in a race. She was gone before Gene even realized how serious it had become. And here's the part almost nobody reported at the time. He wasn't far behind her, not because of anything that happened to him after she died. Because his body had already been failing, quietly, in a completely different direction. For years. Gene Hackman's heart had been rebuilt and patched for over a decade. Congestive heart failure, an aortic valve replacement, coronary stents, a pacemaker implanted back in 2019. Layered underneath all of it, something even harder to see from the outside, autopsy findings would later confirm neurodegenerative changes consistent with Alzheimer's disease. Betsy hadn't just been his wife of over 3 decades. She'd quietly become the only functioning link between Gene Hackman and the outside world, his medications, his schedule, his safety net. When that link failed, nothing replaced it. So now go back to the number investigators didn't want to say out loud on day 1. Betsy died around February 11th. Jean's pacemaker recorded its last irregular heartbeat on February 17th. That's not a bad afternoon. That's 6 days. A 95-year-old man alone, his own body failing, sharing a house with his wife's body, and never once picking up a phone. Not because anyone silenced him. Because there may have been no one left, inside his own mind, who fully understood what had happened, or how to ask for help. His final autopsy holds one more detail, quiet in a way that's almost harder to sit with than anything dramatic could have been, a low concentration of acetone in his system, the marker doctors associate with prolonged fasting. Somewhere in those final days, he had gone without eating. Investigators believe he collapsed suddenly near that mudroom door, cane still in hand, heading somewhere, or just back from somewhere when his body simply stopped letting him choose. The pacemaker's last abnormal reading on the 17th may mark that exact moment, or the final stretch of a heart that had been losing ground for days already. 6 days. Alone. Failing. Inside a home built over 50 years to keep the outside world exactly where it was. Outside. Here's what people forget about the man behind those gates. Before the silence, before the privacy that swallowed his final years, Gene Hackman was one of the warmest people in the room. His barber in Santa Fe remembers him showing up every few weeks, settling into the same chair, talking Hemingway and Kansas weather like an old friend catching up. He tipped double. He remembered people's kids by name. At the farmer's market, vendors knew him on sight, buying green chilies in bulk, laughing at his own bad Spanish. He didn't build those walls because he disliked people. He built them to protect what was left of his independence, his dignity, and in the end, his grip on a world that was slowly slipping out of reach. If you've been following cases like this one, stories where the truth turns out to be more human than any theory could invent, that's exactly what this channel is built around. If that's what you came for, this is a good moment to subscribe, because there's more of it on the way. Officials ruled both deaths natural. No trauma, no foul play. Legally, the file is closed. But closed isn't the same as simple. How does a couple with every resource in the world end up with no safety net at all? How many families right now, tonight, are living some version of the same quiet arrangement? One partner holding everything together for the other with no plan in place for the day the one holding it together is the one who falls. That's the real mystery this case leaves behind. Not what was hidden in a house in Santa Fe, but how something this preventable happened to two people who, on paper, had everything they'd ever need to prevent it. Gene Hackman spent a career playing men who couldn't outrun the situations closing in around them. Systems, circumstances, choices made long before the story even started. In the end, nothing closed in on him but time itself, and the terrible randomness of which of two people gets sick first. So here's the question worth sitting with. Not about locked doors or hidden rooms, but about something much closer to home. If you were the one holding everything together for someone you loved, and suddenly you couldn't anymore, who would even notice in time? Let me know what you think in the comments.